I'm not the kind of guy who scares easily. I grew up in a small town called Raven Hollow, the kind of place where everyone knows each other and nothing exciting ever happens. But one night, I realized how easily an ordinary drive home could turn into something straight out of a nightmare. It started after I left my friend Ethan's house on the far side of town. We'd been watching movies, just hanging out, nothing crazy. By the time I decided to head home, the sky had opened up into a cold, steady rain, the kind that blurs your windshield and makes the world feel distant and dreamlike. There weren't many streetlights on that stretch of road, and most of the houses were spread miles apart. I remember gripping the wheel, leaning forward, squinting through the downpour. Everything looked the same, just black trees and the shimmer of my headlights bouncing off wet asphalt. I reached the intersection by Ridgeway Road, the only traffic light for miles. My light turned red, and I slowed to a stop. Across the intersection, a blue sedan sat idle. Its headlights glared through the rain, the wipers flicking back and forth. But it wasn't moving. It had the green light. At first, I figured maybe the driver was distracted or waiting for someone to cross, but the road was completely empty. No one around, not even another set of headlights in sight. The longer I stared, the stranger it felt. The car didn't budge. Its engine was on. I could see the faint exhaust smoke curling in the rain, but it just sat there. When the light turned green for me, I decided to go around it. I drove slowly, craning my neck as I passed, but the raindrops and fogged-up glass made it impossible to see inside. As soon as I cleared the intersection and checked my rearview mirror, the blue car suddenly started moving. It made a sharp turn and began following me. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe they lived somewhere along this road. But the way they matched my speed, keeping exactly the same distance, turn for turn, it made my stomach tighten. A few minutes later, their headlights grew brighter. They were closing in. The glare filled my mirrors, blinding me, like they were trying to crawl inside my car through the light alone. Okay, I muttered, trying to steady my breathing. Maybe they're just impatient. But then a new light flickered on my dashboard, the tire pressure warning. One tire was low. It was odd timing, sure, but I ignored it until another signal flashed. Flat tire detected. My hands started shaking. Something was wrong. I slowed down, and the blue car slowed down. I sped up, and they sped up. They were glued to me. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Had they followed me from Ethan's place? Did they plant something on my car? Were they waiting for me to stop? The steering wheel started pulling to the left, my car wobbling slightly. I could feel the rim grinding against the road. Shit, I whispered. I was only a few minutes from my neighborhood, but I didn't think I'd make it. The tire felt completely shredded now, and I had no choice. I pulled to the side of the road under a flickering streetlight. The blue car pulled over too, not behind me, but diagonally, blocking part of the lane. Its headlights cut through the rain like knives. That's when I knew I wasn't just being paranoid. They wanted me to stop. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, 3 doors opened. 3 men stepped out, all wearing dark hoodies soaked in rain. One of them held something in his hand. I couldn't see what it was at first, until he raised it toward my window.
A gun. My entire body froze. They started yelling something about opening the door, getting out of the car. Their voices were muffled by the rain, but I didn't move. Then, crash. The back passenger window exploded. Glass sprayed across my seat, and one of the men reached inside, unlocking the door from the inside. They swarmed me in seconds, hands pulling, grabbing, shouting over each other. I tried to fight back, but one slammed my head against the frame of the car, and everything went blurry. I hit the ground, the pavement cold and wet against my cheek. All I could think about was how freezing it was, how unreal it felt. Their boots splashed around me as they rifled through my pockets, tearing the car apart. Then, one of them shouted something. I couldn't tell what. And the next thing I knew, they were gone. The blue car's tires screeched as it sped off into the rain. When I finally stumbled to my feet, dazed and bleeding, my phone was gone. They'd taken everything, except my car. I drove home on a rim, sparks flying behind me. The police arrived soon after, but all they found were small metal spikes scattered near that same intersection. The officers said the thieves probably set them there to blow out unsuspecting drivers' tires, a setup for robbery. But to me, it felt too personal, like they'd picked me. To this day, every time I see a blue car sitting idle at a light, I feel that same chill, that same watching silence, that same gut-deep fear that they're waiting for me again.
My name's Leela, and for a while I lived alone with my dog Oliver in a small townhouse on the edge of Pine Valley. It wasn't the kind of place you'd call creepy. If anything, it was cozy. But I learned that safety is an illusion, and that night, the illusion shattered. It was raining, not a storm, just a soft but constant drizzle that made everything outside shimmer under the streetlights. I was curled up on the couch with a blanket, scrolling through my phone while Oliver lay near the back door. Every so often, he'd perk up and whine softly, pawing at the glass like he wanted to go outside. Finally, I sighed, got up, and let him into the fenced backyard. Not even 20 seconds later, I heard a sound I'd never heard from him before. A panicked yelp, followed by a terrified bark. I rushed to the door. Oliver came sprinting back, fur soaked, tail tucked tight. Something had scared him bad. I opened the door and peered into the rain. Nothing. No movement. No sound except the pattering of rain against the patio. I locked the door, comforted Oliver, and sat back down, trying to calm my nerves. But for the rest of the night, he wouldn't stop pacing. His head kept darting toward the windows, first the kitchen, then the hallway, then the living room. Each time, he'd growl quietly, as if something was moving outside. It got worse around 9:30. I was sitting on the couch, and Oliver suddenly froze, his gaze locked on the window behind me. His growl turned low and guttural. I turned slowly, and there, just inches from the glass, was a man. His face was pale, drenched, pressed almost flat against the window pane. His eyes were locked on mine, unblinking, no expression. I screamed. The man flinched, then bolted sideways, disappearing into the rain. Oliver barked like crazy, spinning in circles. I slammed the blinds shut
and called 911 with shaking hands. But before I could even finish explaining, I saw something move in the reflection of the microwave, a shadow darting past the front porch. The dispatcher told me to stay inside, lock the doors, and wait, but no one came that night. Hours passed. I finally went upstairs to my room with Oliver, locking the door behind us. I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft tick of rain and my own heartbeat. And then I heard voices downstairs. 2 men, whispering at first, then talking in normal tones. I froze. Oliver lifted his head, ears perked, and growled. They weren't trying to be quiet. They were in my house. I grabbed my phone, whispering into it as I called 911 again. I could barely speak, just breathing into the receiver, begging them to hurry. The men started up the stairs. Their boots creaked with every step. Then one of them spoke. "Hey, it's okay. We just want to talk." My blood ran cold. I screamed for them to leave, told them I'd called the cops. For a few seconds, silence. Then, "We're here to help you." Their voices were calm, too calm, and that made it worse. Oliver began barking uncontrollably, standing between me and the door. I pressed myself against the far wall, sobbing silently as their shadows fell under the doorframe. Then, nothing. No more footsteps, no talking, just silence. It felt like hours before I heard the distant wail of sirens growing closer. Suddenly, pounding footsteps thundered down the stairs, the sound of someone running hard through puddles outside. When the police finally entered, they found muddy footprints near every door and an open window in the laundry room. No one was caught. But here's the thing that haunts me. The officers said the footprints led toward the back door, but only one set led away. The second pair disappeared inside the house. I moved out a week later. Even now in my new apartment, I sometimes wake up to Oliver growling at the window, and I don't have the courage to look because I'm terrified the face staring back might be the same one.
I used to work at a convenience store in Millfield, a small, quiet town that barely showed up on a map. We were open 24/7, and I usually worked the early shift, 3 a.m. to noon. Those hours were supposed to be peaceful. They weren't. It was a cold, rainy Tuesday, the kind of morning where fog clings to the street like smoke. Not a single customer for the first hour. I stood outside under the awning, smoking a cigarette and staring at the row of shuttered stores across the parking lot. Everything was still, except a lone car pulled in and parked a few spaces away. It was odd because at that hour, no one came around unless they were heading straight to my store. But the car just sat there, headlights off, engine quiet. I tossed the cigarette, went back inside, and waited. 5 minutes, 10, no one came in. I peeked outside again. The car was still there, but empty. I swear I saw it move slightly, like someone shifting inside, but when I focused, nothing. Half an hour passed. The rain got heavier.
I decided to take out the trash just to do something. The dumpster was out back, a long, narrow alley lined with puddles and buzzing lights. I rolled the trash cart out the door and immediately got drenched. That's when I noticed something strange. The back door of the shop next to mine, a small pawn store, was slightly open. There were no lights inside, no movement, but the door was cracked just enough to show darkness beyond. I knew the owner, Mr. Lang. He was an older guy who didn't even show up until 8 a.m. Curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer. As soon as I crossed into the doorway, I heard it. Faint movement. Drawers opening, things shifting. Someone was inside. I called out, "Hello, Mr. Lang?" The noises stopped instantly. I stood there for a long moment, the rain pounding behind me, waiting for any response. Then I noticed what was holding the door open. A broken doorknob. My stomach dropped. I stepped back slowly, ready to run, but before I could move, I heard a low creak from behind the door. Someone was there, watching me. I sprinted back through the alley and slammed my store's door shut, locking every bolt. Then I called the police. While I waited, I pressed my ear against the shared wall between my store and the pawn shop. First, nothing. Then, faint scraping, like someone dragging something heavy across the floor. I stayed there, listening, heart hammering, until flashing lights lit up the alley. When the officers broke into the pawn shop, they found a man hiding in the stockroom, armed with a crowbar and an empty pistol. He'd been breaking into multiple shops that week, including mine. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. When they reviewed the security footage, they saw that before he broke into the pawn shop, he walked up to my store door. He stood there, staring through the glass for nearly 5 minutes, just watching me, standing in the rain, motionless. Then he turned away.